Empower You podcast is devoted to bringing real-world wisdom and encouragement to our listeners. We discuss a multitude of life principles and the process from an economic, cultural, and societal perspective. We believe that through tough conversations and shared wisdom, we can pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. Subscribe to our channel and let us empower you. Welcome back to Empower You podcast. My name is Kibwe Cooper, and I am the creator and host. How you doing out there? Today, I'm going to be doing a reflection. This episode is just me, no guests. I have just some thoughts about the season that we're in, and the conversations, the topics that we've covered. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and I just kind of want to hang out with you guys and talk just a little bit. What do you think? So, 2021 has been really, really interesting so far. We finished the first quarter of the year in March, obviously. And it really caused me to put in perspective the progress that I've made with this podcast, with the Empower You brand. We now have merchandise that's for sale. I have an online course where I teach people how to build their own platforms through podcasting. I am stretching myself in a variety of ways in order to create the space for this work that I'm doing. I'm really proud of what I've accomplished, I'll be honest. You know, it's been, a little over a year? Not even a year yet since I've fully launched Empower You podcast. I started working on it last year, 2020, in March, April, but I hadn't officially launched it yet. So I'm moving really fast, you guys, and I'm proud of what I've done. But what I'm realizing is that it doesn't matter how fast you try to go. It doesn't matter how much you put yourself through, right? Because the time it takes to do something is just the time that it takes to do something. I've been really committed to Empower You podcast, to the Guru Guide to Podcasting, which is my teaching community, to empowering others and providing a platform for people to speak and to express themselves and to share their wisdom and give us some space to talk about some stuff that needs to be discussed. There are so many moments in each of our journey that are so incredibly impactful, and more times than not, we don't get to discuss them. We kind of just breeze over them, those dark moments where the only thing left is you and the seed that started this idea, this desire, this journey. There's an intense underground period of splitting and stretching and growing and expanding that happens way before you ever see any of the results. And sometimes we don't talk about that as much. That's why Empower You podcast exists, because a lot of people give up in those dark, seedy periods of time where all you're doing is sacrificing. And so what I believed prior to the end of March was that if I squeezed myself hard enough, if I lost enough sleep over something, if I stressed out, if I was intense enough, that would create faster progress. That would create a more intense pace. And I'm really reconsidering that. I'm really thankful for the pace that I'm going and for what I've been able to accomplish. I'm very proud. And I don't mean proud like, ooh, look what I did. Proud like I'm so thankful that I've had the faith to continue moving forward. Proud like I'm so glad I didn't give up in many of those other moments where, I'll be honest, the thought crossed my mind. I remember thinking when I was 26 years old, this can't be it. This can't be all there is to life. Just getting up, going to work, getting up, going to work. I was miserable. After my mom passed away in 2016, in March, I learned that it doesn't matter how much you give yourself. Well, I'll put it this way. It doesn't matter how much you give others, because if you're not giving yourself that same love and attention, it doesn't matter, because in order to grow, in order to continue to progress forward, you yourself have to be full. You yourself have to have something to give. And I'm often trying desperately to outwork time, to outwork my own need for connection, for companionship, for camaraderie, for community. Because the idea was that if I worked hard enough, if I squeezed myself, if I sacrificed enough of myself, the progress would fill those voids. And since we're talking about on this show, and since one of the main objectives of Empower You podcast is to leave a ladder, I think it's important that I leave this one. You have to love yourself and spend as much energy on yourself. Be as intentional with yourself as you possibly can be, because if you intend to output, you have to have something inside of you that is ready to give. And I have reached a point where I was just empty. And you guys wouldn't know it because the podcast moves on, because I'm great at functioning. But what I want to tell you is that functioning is only half the battle. And if I truly desire to create impact and leave a ladder, I have to do more than function. I have to do more work. I have to be more intentional. I have to show myself more care. I have to overcome my own worthiness complexes that we all have in some form or fashion. It's really interesting because you can stand in the gap for someone, for many people, and you can also simultaneously be crying out for someone to stand in the gap for you. But the reality is, no one can save you until you save yourself. No one can show you the love that you want to receive. No one can make you successful enough. No one can be any of the things that you are trying to be for others until you are in a place where you feel you are worthy of it. And I'll expand on that a little bit. I could give you $1 million, right? But if you really don't believe that you're worth $1 million, if you really haven't taught yourself that the first opportunity you get to have increase, you're going to do any number of responsible, strategic, thoughtful, and, wise things with that money, you're gonna lose it. You just are. And what I'm learning is that I could have the greatest podcast and reach the most people, but if I haven't delivered the same impact, cultivated the same impact in myself, then ultimately I'm just empty. And I don't want anyone out there who is a high functioning person to assume that just because they're high functioning, that's all they need to be. Because the truth is, there is so much more than just functioning. There is so much more to feel and to see and to sense than to just function. I'm learning this stuff, okay? I'm not an expert. I am forever the student of the process. And I hope you are too. I hope that's why you listen to Empower You podcast. Because you realize that at some point in time, we have all passed through our own dark stages. And some of us have made it out on the other side victorious. Some of us are stuck in the cave, in the hole, in that space where you really can't see your hands because everything just seems so dark around you. Some of us are stuck there. Some of us are so afraid of that space that we won't even enter into the process of becoming anything different because we're just afraid of what that will do to us, around us. We're afraid that it will damage our comforts, our privileges. I am in a state where I've been in the tunnel for a long time. And what you don't know, what you don't realize until you're in that space is that sometimes you can get comfortable. You can adjust. You can really start to put together some pieces even though it's dark, even though you can't fully grasp what you're looking for. You still know your way around, and that's kind of how I've been. I'm fully invested in the process. I'm fully immersed in the process, and I've sacrificed a lot to be there. But if I don't show myself, if you don't show yourself, that love, that appreciation, the thankfulness, because it takes a lot. It takes work in order to be significant in whatever it is you're doing. But you have to love yourself in all those various stages of growth. You have to learn to build that relationship with yourself so that on days when you don't feel like you're 100%, you don't even feel like you're 25%, you still admire yourself for being in it, for getting up every day, for going after it. Your consistency in loving yourself, your consistency in building that relationship with yourself is so important. And I've neglected that in a lot of ways. And I'm learning not to do that. I'm learning that I am only as confident as I am sure of myself. And I don't mean myself as in the person that you see. I mean the person that nobody sees, the Kibwe that is inside. And I hope that this transparency will encourage you to look at yourself and ask yourself, are you really confident and happy and okay with where you are, proud of who you are? Or are you proud of the accomplishments that you have made, and therefore you feel worthy of notice? Being worthy of someone's admiration does not mean that you love yourself. Being worthy of someone else's praise does not mean that you possess the self-love that is needed in order for you to fully tap into your potential and your purpose. You gotta love it. You gotta love you in all your various shapes and sizes and moments. They are all very important. I had some significant things happen in March, and I'll tell you about them a little bit later. But what I'll say is that I learned that I need people. I need connection. I need community. I need accountability. I'm a strong person, and so are you. But that doesn't mean that we travel alone. The lone wolf dies, the pack survives. Let that sit for a second. Are you a lone wolf on your journey? Do you feel completely alone in the presence of everyone else? Do you feel like you're making it? Like you're accomplishing what you set out to do? Yet, it's just you and the mirror all the time. It's time to build a relationship with that reflection of yourself, because it's not until you love your reflection, you admire, you respect, you're inspired by your reflection, that you can truly possess and be in a position to possess your highest self. And you can use a variety of ways to do that. Self-development is one. I've read about 5 books so far this year. That's really helped. Doing some kind of physical activity is very, very helpful. I try to work out every morning. But even more than that, I try to be very intentional about the way that I talk to myself in my head, the way that I communicate on the inside. Because functioning doesn't mean you love yourself. Being a high performer doesn't mean that you're happy. It means you're good at doing something. You're gifted in a certain area. But you shouldn't settle for just being gifted in that area. You shouldn't settle for just being okay. There's more. There's more. There's so much more. And I really pray that you find it. I'm looking for it. I'm working for it. I'm working towards it. I'm being very intentional about loving myself, speaking kindly to myself, affirming myself. Because the more I believe it, the more it manifests around me. Doesn't matter how highly I perform. There is no worthiness. You will never be worthy of the air that you breathe, because it is a gift, which is why they call the present a present. So I encourage you to do this work with me. I encourage you to be very intentional about your space, how you speak to yourself, what you believe about yourself, the words that you allow to ruminate and cycle through your mind and spirit. I want you to know that you are worthy of love, of your own admiration. You are worthy. I am worthy. But sometimes it takes being incredibly intentional to remind ourselves of that. And that's okay. That's okay. Everything has its reason, its time, its season. But we gotta start. We can't continue to go through this next quarter beating ourselves up because we make mistakes, beating ourselves up because we are innately human, beating ourselves up because life is hard and sometimes, things happen. I had a guy tell me, who I work with, he said, "It is an imperfect world and screws fall out." And I want you to think about that. You can be the absolute best you can be, and there will still be things that just aren't right. And that's okay. Sometimes life being imperfect reminds you to love yourself, reminds you that you are a gift, reminds you that you are worthy of love anyway, regardless of what happened. And so I encourage you to love on yourself. I encourage you to be intentional, to speak kindly to yourself. You are worth it. I am worth it. Thank you all so much for listening. Every month, there are listeners all over who listen to this. And I want you to know that I appreciate each and every one of you. I want all of your email addresses too, by the way, so I can keep up with you. So if you have a moment, go ahead and send me a thank you note, send me a hello note, send me a, I like the podcast note at empoweryoupodcast@gmail.com. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you for being brave enough to continue to confront things that might make you uncomfortable, because it's hard work. It's hard work. But you continue to do it. And you should be proud of yourself for that. You should be proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. I'm going to let you go now. And next week, we're going to get back on track with another fantastic interview. But I wanted to slow it down a little bit and share with you some of my own personal reflections and thoughts, because it's important. It's important. And I hope I've encouraged you to really love and look at yourself. Share this with somebody who you love, who you care about, and let me know what they think. Okay? Again, my name is Kibwe Cooper. I'm the founder, creator of Empower You Podcast, the Guru Guide for Podcasting, and soon to be many others. And thank you for being here. I will talk to you a little bit later. Peace. Empower You Podcast is devoted to bringing real-world wisdom and encouragement to our listeners. We discuss a multitude of life principles and the process from an economic, cultural, and societal perspective. We believe that through tough conversations and shared wisdom, we can pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. Subscribe to our channel and let us empower you.